Hey guys, so before we start today's video, I want to shout out two YouTube channels. So the first one is Crabeg. This is a guy who's very active in the Discord. He's been around for a long time, and in my opinion, he's one of the big brains in PvP and PvE. And he started making videos, and they're really good. So I suggest you guys go subscribe to him. We want more people making content for the game. I'm only one person, and my stuff is average at best. So let's go support the really good guys out there putting up really cool content, and Crabeg is one of them. So go subscribe to his channel. And then Machine, I've been a big fan of Machine's. He's at 646 subs at the making of this video. Let's try and get him to 1,000. He puts out a lot of content. A lot of the stuff that I make come from ideas from his videos. I can bounce off of it. So huge shout out to him. Go support him. If you aren't subscribed, I know that these are two French speakers. Crabeg doesn't even talk, but I know Machine speaks French. But I think he explains well the concepts, at least just through the visuals. So even if you don't speak the language, I think you have a general understanding of what he's trying to get across. So anyway, with that being said, let's get into today's video. Hey everyone, so today's video I'm going to be starting a tier list for individual dungeons and areas of the game. I'm deciding to do this because I get a lot of questions about, hey, I'm farming Ash right now with, supported friends, Rosalys, and I'm just trying to progress in the game. What do I do, right? So, people will get through adventure, they'll be doing Void Tower normal, and now they just want to get better gear. So, the thing is you can farm wherever. The thing is it's going to depend on the heroes that you pull. The game doesn't give you a whole lot of free heroes outside of Hitoshi and Florence. Now, those heroes are very good, so that's good, and it's a good baseline, and I talk about them on this tier list. But if you pull good green heroes, you're probably going to want to farm Queen of Tides. If you pull good red heroes, you can farm Tulpa or progress further in Tulpa. So it just depends on the heroes that you pull. So what I got here today is a list of all the legendary and epics in the game, and I developed a tier list for Tulpa and their roles in there. So with that being said, let's talk about a couple things. So the first thing is, in regards to this tier list, is just a guideline, right? I guess other than the S tier on this list, if you just slap a whole bunch of A tier people into a team, it might not work. You need to understand, good team composition. That's really important. The other thing that you need to know is stages 1 through 16 of Tulpa, Queen of Tides, Witch of the Wind, Gemini Dragon, and Ash Magisteria are just way different than stages 17 and 20. I've had individual videos of teams for stages 17 and up. Stages 16, 1 through 16, like I said, are completely different. This is where just good team composition can actually get you, all the way to the end, I think. Where stages 17 and 20, you're really going to need some specialists and things like that, okay? So I have a baseline here of good team compositions. This is just general progression. It might be slow, or whatever. Maybe it takes 5 minutes, 6 minutes, but it will clear, right? And what you want there are, in your 4 spots, you want to support hero, whether that's a healer or somebody who's buffing your team with shields, defense up, attack up, health up, heal over time, any of those things. You're going to need someone like that if you're just doing safe, just progression teams. You're going to need some damage dealers. You can't just go in there with a bunch of support people and it's just not going to work. You also need some damage buffers or mitigators. So these are people that put debuffs on the enemy, like attack down, defense down. These things are really important to help your runs. And then you have that flex spot. So maybe you do okay on the boss and you just need someone to help clear waves. Because if you can clear the wave, then you can actually beat the boss. But actually getting to the boss is kind of the hard part. A damage enhancer, an additional damage enhancer. This is somebody like, a Florence or a Muriel or a Shane who don't actually have debuffs, but they have additional damage that is calculated outside of the normal terms of battle. Or you could just throw in another damage dealer, which a wave clearer tends to be. And then the other thing is like one-shot teams. Like if you expect to put all of these heroes in and then just one-shot something, it's not going to happen. One-shot teams are really calculated. They're min-max teams. Some big brain people get in a room and they figure this stuff out, right? So I do want you to keep that in mind. This is just if you guys pull some new heroes, you're starting the game out, you're a month or two in, and you're trying to progress through the Tulpa dungeon because you've pulled some good green heroes or red heroes. That's what this tier list is for. And then, some cheese teams, right? So these are the teams that incorporate, a bleeding strategy or poisons. They deserve their own videos. I do talk about them in here in this video, but I'm not going to touch on, the full composition of the team. This is just talking about heroes that are really good in Tulpa, have some uses, and if you pull them, based on this good team composition kind of guideline here, you should be able to clear Tulpa, okay? Or at least farm high enough in the stage where you get good enough gear and you could progress over time after getting better and better gear. So with that being said, this F tier, this is a lot of PvP units or blue units that just have no use in Tulpa. There are some green heroes in here as well that are really lackluster, just don't have really any use, okay? I'm just going to graze over that real quick because I'm going to zoom in and we're going to go over the D through S tier, okay? So that's the F tier. So when it comes to the rest of your list here, so starting in the D section, so Annette, this was a Matrix hero. She's also a debuffer and got buffed recently, and she has some pretty good application in Tulpa for wave clearing and on the boss himself. With having so much of that damage mitigation on her debuffs and also providing damage as a wave clearer, I think she's a pretty good flex slot. If you have her and you're just trying to progress up through, she's really nice to fit in there. So Atara, even though Atara is a negative affinity and she won't do well on the higher stages for sure, she's going to be great early on just to boost the defense of your entire team to make them tankier to help them survive against the boss and waves. Barclay is part of one of those cheese comps. He can be used, with Maeve, which is, she's around here somewhere. She's basically Aaron. Yeah, she's right here. So you have Maeve and Aaron that do the same thing. They reduce ultimate ability cooldowns, but they need heavy investment. But there are cheese comps out there where you're able to, have invincibility up the whole time, and, the damage over time eventually kills the boss. So he's good in those cheese comps. Bulin is another okay wave clearer. She does some decent damage on the boss with her induction. But with her being green, of course, she's not really best in class. Same thing here with Brand the Brilliant. He does damage based on true health. So the higher the stages, the better he's going to get. You can slap him in a stun set to really help you clear some waves. And up through stage 16, the bosses take damage based on true health. So he's pretty good there. Cordelia, even though she's primarily a PvP unit, and then obviously her main case in Guild versus Environment, but she is pretty decent to take care of the harder to kill minions. She'll have no real effect on the boss itself, but she can help with the waves. Crazed Urzag, this is another one, especially if you have him A2, which is going to be hard for some newer players, but he does a lot of good AoE damage, especially if you have some heroes in here that do multiple attacks, like your Bellas or your Flaming Milas, which we'll talk about later. He can provide some pretty nice support in the flex spot. Divine Yolanda is a pretty good support hero. She puts up some pretty relevant buffs, invincibility and things like that, while also dealing some damage and ignoring defense 100%, which Tulpa actually has a lot of. But she is nowhere near top tier, but if you have her, she can be used early on. Same thing with Balberith. Balberith has, he's one of the few heroes that have AoE damage as a fire unit, surprisingly. So he can help with some waves. He probably does okay damage against the boss, but not much. He's really only in there if you don't have a whole bunch of other options. Aaron, I don't even really like mentioning Aaron and Levi and stuff anymore, but some people might still have him. He is, again, part of that cheese comp that I've already mentioned. Avera, another decent wave clear. She's one of the heroes that you can get in the rookie summons, where she's guaranteed after 10. It's either her or Mulhex, so if you pulled her, she can be used in Tulpa, so that's not bad. Giranol, best in class for PvP, but even from a Tulpa perspective, she can do some pretty decent damage on the waves. She has a nice hitting AoE on her ultimate that ignores some defense based on the difference between her attack and the enemy. Halia is really good in here just to speed up your team. A lot of times, people struggle with the speed requirements on dungeons while also getting enough damage. So even though she's a negative affinity here, she can actually help with some of the gear requirements. So she's pretty nice there. I already touched on Maeve. Huntress Freya, she is negative affinity, but she does have the ability to completely mitigate a counterattack, and that's one of the mechanics of Tulpa, is if he gets hit a certain amount of times, he counterattacks. So she can kind of help you get around that, especially if you're going for like a one-shot team or something like that. She also puts up defense down too, so pretty nice. Imogen, another flex spot hero here for wave clearing. She can do a lot of damage. She also has defense pierce, so she can do some pretty good damage against the boss itself once you get there. Pretty nice flex spot as well. Hyunwoo, again, kind of the cheese comp with the bleeds and Barclay. Mathasia, really good early on. Good healer, brings back your team if they end up dying or get one shot by the Tulpa counterattack. So pretty nice support there. Ralph, same thing, some really good damage mitigation, can taunt the waves, so you have the ability to clear them if you're okay in the boss. What's this guy's name? I forget his name. Dracula. So, why can't I remember his name? Anyway, okay wave clear. He looked like he was going to be real good for the boss, but they mitigated a lot of his damage, so he's still useful. He's also a bleeding character, so if you don't have Hyunwoo, you could possibly use him with Barclay. Cirrus is okay wave clear early on. She really falls off. Urian, same thing, decent wave clear. Vengeful Hassle, there's got to be some kind of cheese comp out there because he puts up invincibility. He's just like a better Mathasia. We'll see, grants some bonus turns, so whenever that's not an issue on stages 1 through 16, that can be pretty good. Antinua, she's going to be part of one-shot compositions, especially early on where the bonus turn doesn't hurt you. Stages 17 through 20 is going to be an issue. So Aristal, he can actually also be a pretty good hero as well when it comes to saving one of your heroes. I could see him slotting in somewhere with a one-shot team where just someone needs to survive in order for you to wait for the curses to proc or something like that from Zitlin. Asrina, pretty good damage dealer against the boss, especially if you bring other Ignite heroes, which I have listed, up on this list with Matson and Arlo, so she can do some pretty good damage off her S2. Hakrin, same thing as Atara, he just brings that additional buff of defense, and he also has a max health buff on his S3. A lot of times, early on, people were using Hakrin with Gangelo and Santis early on to just poison all of the bosses, kill them really quick, and Hakrin was there to just make sure that they stayed alive. So pretty nice there. Regular Hassle has AoE defense down. He also puts up attack up and grants someone a bonus turn, so he's basically a damage buffer. Jacob is nowhere near good in Tulpa, but he can be used early on, especially if you already have one built for Guild Boss, because he's top tier there. But if you play him right, you can build up enough attacks and really do some probably decent damage against the boss. Morgan, he's good to help on wave clearing, especially paired up with Guan Yu. You can really, kind of spiral. So utilizing him with Guan Yu is where he's really gonna shine. Marion Shadowblood, this is another good hero that's really good with Guan Yu, and the maxed health damage that she has is going to be really strong on stages 1 through 16. Scarlet, another decent damage dealer if you're using a bleed composition. Sacred Windstrex, an okay support hero. She increases your damage, which is nice. She has some shields and heals. Zadlux is definitely the poor man's, wave clear. I highly suggest you don't use him. I would much rather use Hitoshi, which is in the C tier. You get Hitoshi for free. You should be building Hitoshi over Zadlux. But if you wanted to, you could use him. Thomas is okay here as well. He has defense down 2 on his ultimate, which is pretty nice for helping do some damage against the boss. And then Trista is good for wave clearing, also with damage as well. And she does have Ignite. So on the C tier, Elise is going to be really good, especially if you have her invested for other areas of the game. Her max true health is really going to help with waves. When she's paired with Flarence, you can essentially, clear waves with just her. And the splash damage is actually pretty cool, but it does take some pretty heavy investment and things like that. But definitely a character worth it. Bachelard actually was made for Tulpa, but he ended up not really working out for Tulpa. So he has a bunch of ignites, which is really nice, and then he also has defense down 2, and he has a cool trait where if he's attacked during a counterattack, he takes no damage and then puts attack up and damage up on himself. So that's really nice. The only thing is it's kind of hard to time that or get your team composition to make sure that he's the one counterattacked. But he is pretty good in Tulpa because of the defense down 2, and he just doesn't care about the counterattacks. So the Dark Twin here is really good, early on stages 1 through 6, where the true damage is a big thing, pushes everyone to the back, good damage dealer, really helpful with waves. Evelyn Firston, really good for helping with damage buffing, as well as extra turns, going to help you get through the waves pretty quickly. She also has defense down 2, brings other heroes in, to deal additional damage, so a really nice support hero. Geralt used to be the king of Tulpa, actually, but he's since been outclassed by a couple different heroes, but he's still pretty good in that slot. But again, really outclassed. I highly suggest you don't invest in him because he's not used anywhere, but he would be okay in Tulpa. Arlo, really strong. Really good damage dealer, especially if you're using some kind of Ignite team, like with Matson or Trista or whatever. So if he's booked, he can probably do some really nice damage against Tulpa. Guan Yu, I talk about this guy consistently. Just fantastic basically everywhere. You're going to need to build teams around him where they do bonus attacks to really utilize his damage, but he's probably strong here. Hector, one of the few heroes that also bring increased damage taken 2, which is going to be pretty big against the boss, but again, he is outclassed by heroes like Bello, which is a fusible champion. Jocasta, really good support hero, puts up invincibility, so really helps on waves and the boss to make sure that you don't get one shot by his counterattack. Very good, and also just keeps your team healthy. In stages 1 through 16, her basic actually does damage based on true health. Max health, sorry. So she can even do a little bit of damage on the boss. Jerome scales pretty well in Tulpa. His damage is based on defense, and Tulpa has a lot of defense, and so does his minions. So you can actually one-shot some of those big minions with Jerome. It's pretty cool. Levi has the ability to actually one-shot Tulpa if all things go well. It's very low percentage. But it is doable, so I do have to put him in the C tier. Renatus, even though he won't have the elemental advantage unless you kill the 2 minions of Tulpa, but if you end up being able to clear those minions, he's going to do a lot of damage to the boss because he has 90% defense ignore. He also heals himself back up, so he can be pretty tanky. Rachel in here is actually really good too for some healing, damage buffing, and if you use her with Bella, Bella cares about buffs on herself. So Rachel was used early on with Bella to actually kind of do some speed runs. It was pretty cool. Valeria is probably your best wave clearer, especially early on. She can be used in a lot of speed runs. And they recently buffed her, so she has, defense down and stuff on her basic. She gets attack up 2 now when someone dies, so pretty nice. Yolanda, really strong damage mitigation with her shields. She grants an extra turn and gives attack up to your damage dealers. So that's pretty strong. Pretty decent support here. Zoltan, if he's A2, he can actually solo a lot of levels. He can even solo, I think, 17. I believe he can solo 17, maybe even 18. Baron, great wave clear. Celestial Cane used in some stage 20 teams, to put up the invincibility. Really important, really nice, similar lines as Jocasta. Foodie, great hero for damage mitigation, heals, great support. Hitoshi, another great wave clear. He can be used early on, probably all the way up to stage 16 to clear the waves in Tulpa, especially if you book them and you get them really early on. Santis is part of the, poison cheese, whether you're using Gangelo, her, and, you can use Aaron, you can use Hakrin, you can use Atara and just poison down people. You can use that all the way up to stage 16. Zachary is basically just like Hitoshi or Baron. He's a really nice wave clearer. Here, he kind of pops off on Tulpa, which is nice. And it's kind of cool that even whenever his AoE abilities only have like a single target, they do more damage. So, pretty cool. Orak, which is another free unit that you can use with exchange tokens. He's pretty good. He does also max health damage and some kind of AoE ability on his trait to help you with the waves as well. So he's a really strong character. He was used really early on and he's fallen off just because he's an epic, and stages 17 through 20 are kind of nuts. So for the B tier, these heroes are kind of integral in making those poison compositions work. Both the Ackerly and the Gangelo. Gangelo is way more important than the Ackerly here because of the green affinity, so that your stacks of poison actually aren't going to go very high with the Ackerly, but Gangelo is going to be really important to make Santis work. Then you have Matson. Matson is really, really strong, puts up increased damage taken, and also has this Vampiric Touch, so he's a healer as well, along with a damage booster, because on his ultimate, while he's putting up the Vampiric Touch, he brings in your damage dealer to do an additional attack. So that can be really good with some of these damage dealers that we'll talk about here in a second. Muriel is another one of those flex spots. She's really great for damage dealing enhancers, whether it's Gavin, Flaming Mila, even Bella, really strong. She's used more on one-shot team compositions. But, stages 1 through 16, I'm sure she's really strong there just for all of the damage, all of the buffs for damage, especially if you use her with like a free hero in Bella. So Bella is the first in our A tier. She's a free fusible champion, and she does tons of damage against Tulpa. She has a really cool trait where if the boss has like defense up, she ignores 50% of it and then puts up increased damage taken too, just on her trait, and it can't be resisted, I believe. And then her ultimate does some really good damage, and she has an S2 that puts up invincible. So if you can time it with the counterattack on Tulpa, she can carry all the way up to stage 16 unbooked, which is really, really good. Brand, just fantastic support hero. Attack up, defense up, so you got your damage mitigation and boosting, along with just sustain with his shields. They're really big. He has attack down on his counterattacks. He's really a great hero. It's just, he's so old that, power creep is the thing. Doomweaver Valyria is great. She's great as a wave clear, and she can die and just still do things. It's pretty nuts. She ignores defense. Yeah, top tier LD legendary for sure. Gavin, fantastic hero. Does need some support around him. He doesn't work just by himself, but the more buffs you can put up on him, he will just melt the boss away. He does some pretty good damage against the waves, especially if he's paired up with Flarence, for the splash damage. Really great damage dealer. Next up is Savannah. Savannah has been kind of a cornerstone of most of these dungeon runs in these higher stages where you utilize a specialist, someone like a Flaming Mila, to just enhance their attack where most of their damage is being done to the boss. Savannah just enhances it. She's there to die. She's really easy to gear. You just stack a bunch of attack on her and, watch your damage dealers just melt people. Shane, in my opinion, a little bit better version of Muriel, although Muriel is going to be better than Shane in a lot of cases. But yeah, his damage mitigation is just really good. And if he's A5, he can prevent someone from dying. Also, if you're pairing him, later on down the road with Resonance set, his Law of Order debuff actually matters. It's even more damage. So just continues to be a fantastic support hero. Shane does for damage output. Rosalie, fantastic hero. Puts up invincibility on herself so she doesn't have to worry about, Tulpa's counterattacks. She does really good damage herself, on Tulpa, ignoring 50% of defense. So she's a great hero, really early on. She can probably scale up to stage 17 as your main damage dealer. After that, you're going to need some other support or additional damage dealers like your Gavins or your Flaming Milas. Zitlin, fantastic here. He's going to need, enough damage output from the rest of the team because he's in there for his, one-shot capabilities. He can be okay as a support hero from 1 through 16, where the boss doesn't put up bleeds on your team, which tends to be really, really toxic. But yeah, fantastic hero for one shot for sure. And then in our S tier, the first one is Alicia. So Alicia enhances damage, and she takes away the biggest headache with Tulpa, which is the counterattack. Once you get up into the higher stages, like the boss counterattacks, and you automatically die, which is a big thing. So having Alicia in there, she's just come to be a fantastic hero. Really impressed with her, and again, just taking away the counterattack is really important. Flarence, again, just damage output, heals. If you put her in certain sets, she gives buffs. She is just an amazing hero. I'm really glad that they give this hero out to players who are starting. This is so key because she's just important everywhere in the game, and she will never be bad. Flaming Mila, I've talked about her a lot ad nauseum, and probably to the point of nauseum over the past 2 weeks, but she is so good against anything green, and Tulpa just happens to be green. Her defense pierce is just nuts. She does so much damage. If you pair her with Light Ophelia, you don't even need to have her booked, and you can beat stage 20. So that's kind of awesome. Yeah, just top tier hero here. She also plays well in other parts of the game. Mauricio, recently added hero. The most recently added hero, actually, along with Renatus. Huge shields. He can taunt the waves. He puts up counterattacks, so additional buffs. So fantastic hero, to go alongside Gavin, Flaming Mila. All of those things, just a really nice addition to the game. And if you pull him early, you're going to be able to fly through Tulpa. Oderic, this guy just continues to be nuts. I still don't know why they made him, I just don't know what they were thinking. But yeah, he can't die. So he's got 3 turns to kill Tulpa. With him and Zitlin and whatever, it's for sure, Tulpa's going down. So, yeah, if you have Oderic, he's basically a cheat code everywhere in the game. And then Light Ophelia, she has crazy support. She heals up your team. She gives damage if you don't need any healing. She gives additional attacks. Like if you use an ultimate and you have her Concerto of Light, you're doing a second ultimate ability. So that's why she pairs so well with Flaming Mila. Flaming Mila's ultimate just does crazy amounts of damage, and you know, Light Ophelia is there to enhance the damage. She also provides counterattacks and stuff too. So anyway, that's the list. You know, if you have these heroes, you can use these heroes to have some kind of, you know, successful Tulpa team. Just follow those steps that I was talking about on the sticky note. You know, this is what you want to build out of your good team compositions. That's support, a damage dealer, some kind of damage buffer or mitigator, and then a flex spot. Okay, guys? I hope this helped. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you on the next one. See ya.